Greetings everyone! Today we're taking a look at the IDW Sonic 2019 Annual, a book that was originally supposed to be released March 27th, but got delayed. Hey, it's out now and that's all that matters. For those unaware, annuals are double-length issues of a comic series that tell one-shot stories that normally wouldn't fit into an ongoing comic, especially if there's a story arc happening around the same time. So it's a good way to jump into the book without getting lost in a current story arc. It's also a chance to show off some new talent to this continuity, as you'll see. Sonic Comic specials are nothing new. The Archie Sonic Comics have produced a number of double-length books over the years. Thus, I'm not surprised IDW would start making their own Sonic-related specials. Interestingly enough, when I picked up the physical version, it was bound in a similar manner to that of a graphic novel instead of stapling pages together. Whatever you may think of IDW, you have to admit they at least want to make a good impression with this book. Like getting Sonic team member Yuji Uekawa, and I'm pretty sure I butchered that name, to do a cover art for this book. For this review, instead of summarizing several stories in one section, and then have my general thoughts section, I'll have each section dedicated to a specific story in the annual. And before I begin, I should point out that according to the current editor of the IDW Sonic Comics, as of this video, all stories are canon to this continuity. Our first story focuses on the heroic comic exclusive characters Tangle the Lemur and Whisper the Wolf. Presumably set not long after the Battle for Angel Island arc, it starts with Tangle excited to see Whisper again. Only Whisper doesn't share her enthusiasm. Tangle begins showing her around her town, Spiral Hill Village. Hey, we finally have a name for this place. The tour takes them to the Mineral Museum run by this character, Jewel, a childhood friend of Tangle. Thanks to years of adventuring between the two, Jewel was able to amass an impressive collection of gems, enough to open up this museum. That's saying something if Whisper's impressed. Unfortunately, such a collection would attract some unscrupulous characters. Sure enough, that's when our antagonists arrive. The Babylon Rogues from the Sonic Riders series, making their IDW Sonic debut. They quickly snatch the gems, and Storm the Albatross sees a big one. That's actually Jewel's shell as she's cowering in fear. Storm unknowingly kidnaps her before the trio escape. Tangle and Whisper follow, thanks to a combination of the slingshot trick from issue 4 and using the special Wispin as a booster. When Storm presents Jewel, Wave the Swallow is horrified. When Tangle and Whisper show up to rescue Jewel, Jet the Hawk will hand her over if they can beat him in a race. This leads to an argument between him and Wave. It turns out she has limits to her villainous ways. Stealing valuables is one thing, kidnapping people, that crosses the line. Jet knows this, but he has a reputation to maintain. Tangle takes advantage of the situation, snatching the gem bags with her tail. Finally, Jet orders Storm to throw Jewel out, and Storm takes it a bit too literally. Jewel hitting the side of the airship damages one of her wings, which means flying is not an option. Whisper gives chase, followed by Tangle and the loot. The Babylon Rogues decide to cut their losses and bail. I'm happy to report that today is not the day these three go splat. Whisper activates her Wispin hover feature, and they float gently to the ground. Later, the three, plus Whisper's Wisp companions, help put the museum back together. Jewel thanks the two, especially Whisper, for saving her and her livelihood. The story ends with Whisper giving Tangle a fist bump. I know Tangle's using her tail, but we might as well consider it an extra arm by this point. I've said this elsewhere, but it bears repeating here. Spiral Hill Village recovered pretty fast from the Badnik attack in issue 4. Granted, we don't know how much time passed between that issue and this one. Plus, Blaze did stay to help with the cleanup. We're introduced properly to Tangle's best friend Jewel, who's a beetle. I wonder if it's writer Ian Flynn and artist Jennifer Hernandez's idea to do this. If so, okay. We need more anthropomorphic bugs. It would justify the bee's existence. She gives us an opportunity to explore Tangle's backstory a little, and as I said earlier, thanks to their past adventures, she now has what I assume is a successful mineral museum, which leads to our conflict for the story. Bringing in the Babylon Rogues lets us have more villains in this universe. It possibly confirms that the Sonic Rider games happened, which should make fans of those games happy, and it's to give Tangle and Whisper someone to defeat without relying on Sonic or another game character. In fact, I'm impressed that what defeated the Babylon Rogues was their own incompetence. No hero versus villain fight, no racing. It's the rogues' inability to cooperate that made them lose. Had they not argued, they would have caught Tangle stealing the bags early enough to do something. A lot of it is also Storm's fault. I think they only keep this guy around because of his strength. Whisper seems to have grown a little. The fact that Tangle invited her to Spiral Hill Village and she accepted is proof enough, which brings up an interesting thought. How did Tangle get a hold of Whisper in the first place? Is it something like, "Hey Whisper, wasn't it great how we took on a giant metal dragon, am I right? Now that we're friends, want to exchange contact information? You can come to my town if you like." I do like how Whisper is still reserved in her social interaction. While hanging out with Sonic and company got her to open up a little, getting out of her lone wolf, well, semi-lone wolf mindset is something that doesn't go away overnight. Still, she's a little more talkative, while still using her whispery voice, and eventually allows Tangle to do a fist bump. With a Tangle and Whisper miniseries coming soon, I feel like this story is a pilot to see how the two comic exclusive characters fare. I think it's fine. Combine that with great art, and I think we're off to a good start, both for the miniseries potential and this annual. The second story stars our main hero of the franchise and his sidekick flying in the tornado, with Sonic in the pilot's seat. They're testing a new booster for the plane, and Tails figures since Sonic is all about speed, he'd be the one doing the testing while Tails notes the results. Before the test begins, something speeds past them, a variation of the Valkyrie bandit called a stealth Valkyrie, and it stole resistant supplies from a nearby storehouse. The only way to catch it is to activate the tornado booster. Sonic's enjoying the thrill, naturally, but Tails says the booster is meant for straightaways, and one wrong maneuver could result in a crash. The stealth Valkyrie tries to lose them in a nearby island canyon. That's not the only problem. Seems when Sonic enthusiastically pressed the boost button, he jammed it, so they're stuck on boost speed. That doesn't stop Tails from coming up with a plan to take care of the Badnik. They'll use the updraft to get close enough to the Badnik and drop their payload, i.e. the booster. Some quick maneuvering causes a geyser of what I assume is lava to blast the stealth Valkyrie enough to let go of the crate. As they prepare to drop the booster, Sonic's like, "Yeah, I'm not letting my little buddy's work go to waste," and personally deals with the Badnik. And that's that. Tails retrieves Sonic, they signal the resistance to pick up the missing crate, which I should point out is in lava, so they have to hurry, and Sonic and Tails speeds off into the sunset, until the booster runs out of fuel. If you've seen my review of Team Sonic Racing's comic adaptation, I said that writer Caleb Gullner had promise, and I wanted to see him work within the official continuity to see how he fares. So far, he's doing a good job. Now I think, unless stated otherwise, he took some inspiration from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Genesis/Mega Drive. Think about it. There's Sonic and Tails on the tornado. They have a booster for the plane, which first appeared at the end of Wing Fortress Zone. The Stealth Valkyrie is a modified version of the Bird Badnik that first appeared in Sky Chase Zone. And finally, Sonic himself pilots the plane, something that only happens when player 1 controls Tails. Otherwise, it's a simple but effective tale that shows off Tails' genius and Sonic's reckless but ultimately good-hearted nature, as exemplified by not letting his buddy's hard work go to waste. Before I move on, I get the reference to another Sega property in the title. What I don't understand is, how will the resistance crate survive in the lava? Unless lava-proof material is readily available in Sonic's world and Anyway, let's move on. Our third story begins with Blaze searching for silver in a desolated area. Don't worry, the dialogue mentioning Amy is to let us know that this is in the present, and the two are not in a bad future, like in Sonic 06, though the present has it rough as is thanks to Sonic forces. Well, Silver's looking to change that. What he's trying, and failing, to hide from Blaze is he's growing a garden, or trying to anyway. Silver's amazed with nature's past, or present, you know what I mean. There's nothing like plants where he comes from, and Amy told him he can grow his own. He picked the spot, planted seeds, watered them, and yet nothing is growing except weeds. Blaze starts inspecting the area and, hold on, Silver said the line. By law, he should be picking up objects and chucking them everywhere. Anywho, Blaze offers to help Silver by first taking advice from Flame Hyanard. After Blaze finishes, she has Silver use a garden hoe to turn the ash into soil so that Silver can remake his garden. It wasn't working earlier due to Silver choosing a spot where the fallout from bombs makes the earth less than ideal. The ash Blaze made will act as fertilizer for the new seedlings. It pays off as, eventually, Silver and Blaze now stand amongst a beautiful garden, with Blaze giving important advice regarding plant nourishment, listen, and provide. It is fitting that Evan Stanley not only did art for this story, she also co-wrote it. She's had plenty of practice writing for Silver and Blaze thanks to her ongoing fan comic, Ghosts of the Future. To let you know, I have not read any of it myself, but I've heard good things. She did write for an official Sonic book, the Archie Sonic spin-off series, Sonic Universe. Her 4-issue arc involves Silver in a bad future, although instead of facing a fire demon, it is an Orwellian dystopia. I have read the story and reviewed it, so watch my videos on those issues if you want to hear my opinion. I have no shame. Evan's co-writer Gigi Dutrix, or Dutrix, and if you're somehow watching this Gigi, I'm sorry I butchered your name, is also a promoted fan. She too has a fan comic, The Murder of Me, which I have not heard of until doing research for this review, and she also does voice acting for Sonic fan projects. From what I was able to find, she was originally supposed to make her IDW Sonic debut with the issue 8B cover, but something happened and Evan instead drew that cover along with cover A. What's important is, Gigi is here now, and she and Evan made a nice little character piece with Silver and Blaze growing a garden. I'm reminded of a deleted scene from the original Terminator, when Kyle Reese is emotionally overwhelmed by nature, having grown up in an apocalyptic wasteland. Silver's the same, but unlike Reese breaking down, Silver takes it all with childlike wonder. It's only when he tries and fails to make his garden that he gets frustrated. Blaze helps and offers some useful advice. I assume she learned it in the Soul Dimension. You know, I wonder, are the writers familiar with gardening in general, or did they have to do some research? I'm actually kinda curious about this. This story, which I assume also takes place after the Battle of Angel Island, is a nice breather from all the action in this book. It shows the characters as more than just visitors with odd powers. And for some reason, no matter what the media, these two always seem to hang out despite being from different worlds. The story begins with those skunk brothers, Ruff and Tumble, discovering Dr. Eggman's pyramid base from Sonic Adventure 2. This obviously takes place before issue 15 of the main series. It might even take place before they took over the Wisbon distribution town from issue 3, because they're searching the pyramid for any loot and weapons Eggman might have left behind when he abandoned the place. Just because this place is deserted doesn't mean there aren't any booby traps they could potentially trigger, like this one here. Should have studied up on ancient tombs by watching Indiana Jones films, fellas. Tumble's more worried about a potential curse the pyramid's supposed to have. Actually, the only thing they need to worry about is competition. Enter Rouge the Bat, who's also here for Eggman's loot. She probably figured it's safer to nab it now rather than during the events of Sonic Adventure 2. While she may have worked for Eggman for a time, he still had robots and security online. Well, the Skunk Brothers don't want anyone else going after the loot, and possibly the weapons, so Ruff sprays Rouge before the two make a break for it, only to run into an egg golem. Either it's the same one from Sonic Adventure 2, or Eggman had another egg golem lying around. Rouge takes pity on them and searches for the golem's remote, only to find something else. It doesn't matter, Ruff and Tumble destroys the egg golem by having it smash its own head. They even got a proper rhyme for their Team Rocket shtick. This little victory is ruined by the arrival of Rouge. Seems that something she's found turned her into a mummy and says the bandages will doom Ruff and Tumble if they touch them. Interestingly enough, it's Ruff that panics about a curse and drags Tumble out of the pyramid. I'm sure this is the last time they'll encounter something that can change them through touch. Actually, Mummy Rouge was just a trick to get rid of Ruff and Tumble because what she actually found were refugees, I assume they're refugees, who've taken residence in the pyramid. They were keeping the booby traps active to keep out intruders. But thanks to Rouge's act, the Skunk Brothers will spread the word of the pyramid's curse and leave the refugees and the treasure alone. Speaking of treasure, Rouge is allowed to have some as long as she doesn't reveal where she got it. From what I can look up, Cavan Scott is a freelance writer from the UK, who's worked on various spin-off materials for BBC television, which of course includes Doctor Who. For his first outing in a Sonic book, he's done a good job utilizing something from a 3D game in a new way. Penciler Diana Skelly should be familiar to those who've read Archie's Sonic, as she's done a number of issues for the post-reboot era. The story focuses a lot on rough and tumble, and shows how they handle tough situations. This makes me believe, again assuming it takes place before issue 3, that they are capable of taking out a badnik horde and enslaving a town. Them knowing Rouge and vice versa, I can buy it. Infamous criminals and thieves would gain a reputation, good or bad, in the underworld. And I would also buy that Sonic and his more straight and narrow friends would not be familiar with rough and tumble until they do something that gets in their way. Rouge is ever the treasure seeker, but she does have a hidden heart of gold when she decides to help the refugees with the whole intruder situation. And she did get something out of it in the end. The refugees didn't come out of nowhere. They appeared in the shadows while Tumble mentioned the curse. Said curse could be a reference to King Boom Boo, who just popped in randomly in Sonic Adventure 2. If that's the case, they've got nothing to worry about since Knuckles took care of the ghost. There's one more story to look at, so let's get to it. We begin with a group of characters gathering for the first ever meeting of the Sonic Fan Club. Said meeting doesn't start off well as there's disagreement on who's going to be the president. Since they don't have names, I shall call the two here Gavelbanger and Red due to her fur color. And yes, I double checked, it's a she. To settle who should be club president, one of the members suggests a contest. Whoever's the most like Sonic gets to be in charge, and everyone will participate. It starts with a race with Gavelbanger in the lead. Red points out that Sonic is more than just speed and rolls into a ball, followed by a bunch of the others. Gavelbanger points out one more trait that Sonic has: bravery. He'll show his bravery by attacking this lone egg pond that just happens to be right there. It's too much for him, so Red has everyone go after the robot. And wow, you should leave this stuff to the game characters, folks. Even the Chaotix can do a better job than you. Someone else enters the picture, Tangle. She wants to impress the club with her skills. Unfortunately, she's having an off day and gets buried in her tail. All while, off panel, Sonic showed up, smashed the badnik, and zipped away. And that's how it ends, folks. James Kolchalka, I'm sorry if I butchered the name, from what I'm able to find, is notable for works like American Elf and Sketchbook Diaries. Of course, this and other information about him and pretty much all the other talent comes from wikis, and we know how accurate they are. The pencils are done by someone I'm more familiar with, Jonathan Gray, who worked on a number of Archie's Sonic issues, especially during its dark age. His love of the cartoony style, and cartoons in general, is noticeable in the character designs. For example, doesn't this moth look like a certain character from Animaniacs? And look what Gavelbanger is wearing, a pink shirt with a yellow star plus a brown jacket. Is his real name Stefani? As for the story, it makes sense for Sonic to have fans and to have said fans start a club in his name. But to have them do dangerous things to prove you're the best? Yeah, the Hedgehog's not setting a good example. And Tangle showing up to embarrass herself after what we saw in the first story? Nah. I repeat, think the idea of this story is that it's supposed to be a peek at the fandom itself. If that's the case, I'm not crossing that minefield. Besides the art, I classify the story as so-so. If you can find humor in it, great. But I'm not feeling this one. That's the end of the 2019 annual. I hope you've enjoyed this look at more of the world of IDW Sonic, and for the most part, I've had a good time myself. I would not be opposed if they were to do something like this again for next year. Just make sure it's released on time. Though I heard it was delayed to make sure the book looked good, which I can respect. For now though, I probably should be heading back into the main IDW Sonic book as big things are happening around this time. I'll see you then. Greetings and welcome back to the world of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog. Today, we begin taking a look at another part of this world with issue 1 of the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. Yes, a 4-issue miniseries starring 2 comic exclusive characters that debuted a year or so ago. Whether you agree or not, these 2 are popular characters, popular enough to warrant this event. IDW seemed confident enough because remember, there was that issue 0 preview that was released months ago, and that was free. This is not the only time popular Sonic comic exclusive characters got their own story. Before the reboot, Archie's Sonic universe had a 4-issue story featuring an evil recolor of the main hero. And the reason he became popular is because he was reinvented into an interesting character. And to bring it back to Tangle and Whisper, I find them interesting in different ways. Before we dive into issue 1, let's take a brief look at these characters. If you follow my channel, it'll be a repeat of things I've said in other videos. If you want to skip straight to the review, go to this time right here. As always, there will be spoilers, and I'll see you over there. Everyone else, whether you're new here or love it when I recap things, or have no idea who these comic characters are, I'll be happy to help. Tangle the Lemur, or Ringtail Lemur, either one works for me, debuted in issue 4. Beforehand, she was revealed in a promotional stunt that didn't go over well with some people, seeing as the silhouettes kinda resembled a character from the cancelled Archie series. Anyway, a local Spiral Hill village, she helped Sonic and Blaze defend her town thanks to her versatile tail. Seriously, she uses it as a whip, an extra hand, and even a slingshot. She's an excitable individual, sometimes too excitable, but it's due to her having an adventurous spirit. And Sonic and his friends brought a lot of that much needed action. Whisper the Wolf made her debut in issue 8, infiltrating an Eggman base at the same time as Sonic and Silver. Described by Silver as the guardian angel, every now and then she secretly helped the resistance from the shadows. She's more or less the avatar character from Sonic Forces given, well, actual characterization. She even has a special Wispman that utilizes multiple Wisp powers. While she does help the heroes, she'd rather work alone. Well, sort of. When she does interact with other people, she barely speaks above a whisper. Most of the time. She does get a bit emotional when seeing anything Eggman related, or watching, say, an innocent fall to their doom. Her interactions with Sonic and friends allowed her to open up a little, enough that she joined in the mission to liberate Angel Island from Neo Metal Sonic along with Tangle. In fact, it's thanks to this event that the two started bonding. While things started awkwardly at first, Whisper would accept Tangle's invitation to visit the latter's town. In the 2019 annual, Whisper and the audience were introduced to Jewel, a childhood friend of Tangle, and her mineral museum. It was attacked by the Babylon Rogues, and thanks to Tangle and Whisper, Jewel and her livelihood were saved. Let's take a look at what brings these two together once more. We begin with Tangle hoping to raise someone in the village until Jewel arrives. She's a bit worried that Tangle's recklessness will cause her to run into somebody, and she's proven correct here. Well, it's a chili dog stand, but you get the idea. As the two have lunch at the Mineral Museum, Jewel wants to know why Tangle's been acting stranger than usual. Well, it's because she's been bored lately. After hanging out with Sonic and battling Master Overlord, her humdrum life here is unfulfilling. Jewel suggests, be like Sonic, go out and find your own adventures. Tangle would love to. On the other hand though, if situations like Eggman's attack or the Babylon Rogues robbery happen again, she wants to be here to make sure her town's safe. And what perfect timing, there's a loud crash outside of the museum, and Tangle gets another excitable face. She heads outside to see Sonic running by, while being shot at by Whisper. Something's off about Sonic, I don't know what. Anyway, Whisper chases down Sonic while Tangle's confused about the situation. You and me both. Sonic, seeing that Whisper has found a sniping point, decides to flirt with this girl here, blocking any shot she may take. As Whisper readjusts herself, Sonic continues fleeing until Tangle drops in. He says the reason Whisper is attacking him is because Eggman placed a mind-controlled chip in her mask. Tangle heads off to handle this while Sonic chills in the alley. Still, this seems a bit odd for Sonic, and oh my goodness, Sonic.exe? Oh no, 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 no! Before Whisper can get rid of this abomination, Tangle ambushes her and steals her mask. Oh Tangle, you done goofed. Not only is Whisper angry at you, you let Sonic.exe get away! To clarify the situation, Whisper programs her mask to play back a recording of a previous encounter with the Freak, and puts it on Tangle. Sonic.exe says he's been looking for the last of something called the Diamond Cutters, and is ready to finish the job. Enjoy this image of a demonic Sonic holding a knife. Sleep tight, everyone! Tangle wants to learn more, but Whisper wants to talk in a more secure location. As they leave, we see the pink girl Sonic.exe flirted with earlier, only now she has the demonic face. At the museum, Whisper explains what they're dealing with. A mercenary named Mimic, who, like his name implies, can shapeshift. He betrayed his team and helped Eggman eliminate them. Lately, he's taken Sonic's form to ruin the Hedgehog's reputation. She's been tracking him ever since. Jewel notes that this may be the call to action Tangle's been looking for, helping a friend tracking down a villain, and Tangle's all for that. Whisper, though, does not want the help. Tangle begs to join, in the name of friendship and all that, and Whisper's uncomfortable with this idea. Well, too bad for Whisper, her Wisp companions side with Tangle. Cube even gives Whisper the sad puppy dog eyes look. How can you say no to that, Whisper? Eventually, she agrees, and not a moment too soon. Mimic left his knife with a note attached on the door. It's an invitation for a final showdown at a specific location. While it saves them the trouble of tracking him down, something tells me facing him won't be easy. Good luck! First, I want to comment on the logo of this miniseries. I like how it showcases a trait of the characters and their names. I tried looking around to see if established game characters had their names like this, that aren't fan-made, and so far, nothing. Unless somebody points it out in the comments section. Though I wouldn't mind if, in the future, their names had a defining trait integrated into them. From what I've read online, the miniseries is supposed to dive into Whisper's backstory, and I think we're starting to get pieces of it. The way she describes Mimic, and that he murdered his team for Eggman, her face is telling. Also during the masked video playback, when Mimic confronts Whisper, he says his task is not complete as one of the Diamond Cutters, I assume that's the team's name, is still alive. Then there's that face as he pulls a knife on Whisper. Boy, Evan Stanley loves injecting Sonic comics with nightmare fuel, doesn't she? I think many of us know where this is going, but I'll save it for later in case there's a curveball. Before you say anything, I am aware of Whisper's digital card profile. From what little we've seen of Mimic, and believe me, I like to see a little less, he's dangerous. The ability to turn into anyone gives him an advantage, allowing for quick getaways and ambushes. And if he's imitating a famous person, in this case Sonic, he can fool the common folk if they don't look hard enough. We, the audience, can tell from his first appearance that this isn't the real Sonic. His colors are duller for one, and in the case of the eyes, wrong. He's not running at super speed, and thus Whisper can easily catch up to him. And finally, the real Sonic during this time is currently fighting Zombots in another part of the world, while trying not to turn into one himself. But like I said, the disguise is good enough to fool the common folk, like Tangle here. And I should note, according to some behind the scenes info, this takes place between the time Tangle visited Tails' shop in issue 16, and before things with the metal virus get way out of hand. And if this was really Sonic, Tangle would have been infected by now. Anywho, Tangle. Her situation is understandable. As I said earlier, she has an adventurous spirit, and it needs to be fulfilled. At the same time, she does care for her town and its people. For example, Jewel here. And I do like how Jewel is trying to help. They are childhood friends as the 2019 annual established, so she understands what Tangle needs and is trying to encourage her to seek out the adventure and later have her join Whisper in taking down Mimic. The first issue's job is to establish the situation and the players. I think it does it pretty well. The stakes seem personal for Whisper, and hopefully Tangle can prove to be an asset rather than a millstone. Whisper does care for her friend by first refusing her request to join, probably remembering some trauma involving past comrades, and later allowing her to join. after some persuasion. We'll see what kind of tricks Mimic has in store for these two when the miniseries continues next month. See you then. Greetings everyone, welcome to the second part of the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. Before I begin, I should clarify when this story takes place. Based on what I've read after the fact, the story takes place between issues 16 and 17 of the main series, before Eggman pukes the metal virus where the Chaotix live. Now at this point, Sonic has fought Zombots and is trying to keep himself from changing. So technically, a lot of what I said last time still applies. Just wanted to clarify on the time frame. With that out of the way, let's recap part 1. And of course, spoilers from here on out. A mercenary named Mimic has been impersonating Sonic to ruin his reputation, and Whisper's been pursuing him. They end up in Tangle's town, and thanks to not knowing the situation, Tangle prevented Whisper from taking out Mimic. You can understand the lemur's rash actions. Ever since the Badnik invasion and Master Overlord incidents, Tangle's been itching for some adventuring, but doesn't want to leave the town vulnerable. Once Whisper explains, as much as she could, about Mimic, Tangle, at her friend Jules' insistence, decides to tag along. Whisper reluctantly agrees, and soon afterwards, Mimic leaves an invite for a final confrontation. We see Whisper stealthily approaching the facility Mimic mentioned in his invite. Tangle, however, does not. With no activity outside and Whisper unable to scan the interior, they are at a major disadvantage. Tangle's confident they can get the job done as long as they're careful. And that face there, it says, "I think I made a mistake." Still, she warns Tangle to be on guard, and they head towards the front door. As Mimic watches them approach, he starts monologuing that Whisper utilizing others has always been a weakness of hers. Two things of note here. First, Whisper's wisps were originally for members of the Diamond Cutters. And second and most obvious, he was spying on them for some time, which explains the dagger note on the museum door last issue. Plus his new idea of shapeshifting into Jewel. Sort of. Tangle and Whisper enter the building, and right away, Tangle finds sneaking around a bit boring. To quote, "Make him play at our pace," Tangle takes the high ground against Whisper's suggestion. This is when Mimic springs his first trap. He calls for help using Jules' voice. Tangle meets up with Whisper below to investigate. Sharp-eyed viewers may notice some things are a bit off. I'll give you some hints. Take a look at Whisper's speech bubbles, and something of hers is missing. Tangle notes these two details. Too little, too late. Whisper is actually Mimic. He knocks her into a safe and seals it, which is bad. Also, it's airtight, which is worse. Mimic then shifts into Tangle, and despite acting more rude than the actual Tangle, he successfully tricks Whisper into his next trap, an egg hammer utilizing a ball and chain. Once the initial shock wears off, Whisper quickly dispatches the Badnik and takes down Mimic after a brief firefight. Mimic may have deception and the element of surprise on his side, but his actual weapon choices suck. Whisper demands to know where Tangle is. That's when Mimic pulls out another thing he's good at, Mind Screw. He starts shapeshifting into 3 different individuals, their former teammates, all while piling on the "you didn't protect them" spiel. Whisper counters with the old "you sold us out" shtick while whacking him in the gut. Mimic reveals that Tangle's in an airtight safe, and that there are bombs that are about to explode. As Whisper heads over to the safe, Mimic escapes and seals the building. We finally get to see his true form as he walks away, an octopus. Whisper weakens the seal enough to open the safe, but it's too late. The bombs go off. In a brilliant move, Tangle forces herself and Whisper back into the safe, hoping they'll survive the explosion. Lucky for them, it works. In fact, the only thing that's left is the safe. Whisper tells Tangle to go home. Tangle, though, doesn't want to leave, saying, "Yeah, I royally screwed up, but let me prove I'm not useless." Surprisingly, that's not the reason. To prove that she's serious, Whisper's true reason is spoken in a normal voice. She doesn't want to lose another friend. Tangle sees Whisper break down. In fact, she knows Whisper's been emotionally hurt throughout this adventure and wants to hear the complete story. Whisper agrees to explain everything, which is where the issue ends. What a tease. Alright, let's organize what we know so far about Whisper's former group, the Diamond Cutters. Yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point she belongs to them. There were 5 members, including Whisper, Mimic, and the 3 individuals Mimic changed into. Based on this line, they each utilized a wisp, presumably with their own individual wispin, before Whisper took them all to use herself. That's because Mimic betrayed the team and killed 3 of them under Eggman's orders. I'm sure the next issue will go into detail about these events. So let's move on to our players. Tangle is the outsider to this conflict. She wants that adventurous feeling so bad that even though she knows what Mimic is capable of, she made classic heroic blunders like leap before you look and splitting up. It almost led to death by asphyxiation. To be fair, she does admit she screwed up badly and wants to make up for it. I'd say using the safe to survive the explosion is a good start. She does have a good heart, and is doing this not just for the adventure, but to help her friend get some sort of closure. Throughout the issue, she knows Whisper's withholding details because they're a bit touchy. It's only after Whisper confessing about not wanting to lose another friend that Tangle wants the full story. Whisper's shell is cracking. While we have seen her become emotional, albeit briefly, in the past, facing the possible cause of her current state, plus almost losing Tangle, causes her to break down. I think this is why she sticks to the lone wolf routine. She doesn't want to get attached to someone for fear of losing them, like her old teammates. The interactions with Sonic and crew, and later Tangle, help her open up a little, but she's still afraid to form attachments. We'll probably know more about this next time. Mimic's true form is finally revealed. More than likely, he was based off the real-life Mimic octopus from the Indo-Pacific region. It can change its shape, skin color, and texture to resemble various aquatic animals. The comic Mimic goes far beyond that. As I said last time, the imitation is not perfect. In fact, someone pointed out that you can see his suckers on his hands, in addition to the occasional freaky face. But it doesn't matter as long as he can fool a person long enough to spring whatever trap he has. I believe he has another limitation to his ability, the lack of vocal mimicry. Why do you think he shapeshifts into Jewel, or a close approximation, and not have Tangle find him in this state? He cannot imitate voices in his default or any other altered form. In my opinion, the guy is evil. Beyond the traps and deceptions, he shapeshifts into the dead Diamond Cutters solely to mind screw Whisper. Given her facial expressions and later breakdown, it works. No wonder Eggman hired this guy. There's still more story to tell, and next time, we'll finally get Whisper's backstory with the Diamond Cutters and what happened with the group. See you in part 3. Greetings everyone, welcome to the 3rd issue of the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. And I'll go ahead and say, spoilers from here on out. The two's attempt to end a dark chapter in Whisper's life didn't go so well. At an old Eggman warehouse, Mimic tricked Tangle into a safe, then used a badnik against Whisper. When that didn't work, he decided to open up some old wounds by shapeshifting into their dead teammates, before revealing that he rigged the warehouse to explode. Although he was kind enough to reveal Tangle's location. Luckily, the safe protected the two from the explosion. In fact, it was the only thing that survived the destruction. The issue ended with Whisper ready to tell her story to Tangle and the audience. So where to begin with this important backstory? Well, how about Whisper showing Tangle a photograph of her old team, the Diamond Cutters. In addition to herself and Mimic, who are the Scout and Infiltrator respectively, there's Slinger the Marksman, Smithy the Crafter, and Clairvoyance the Psyop. I see what you did there. We can also see their respective Wisp companions next to them. As Whisper explains, they were an anti-Eggman mercenary team that took on the most dangerous missions. Each member had their own mask with their own recorder and video playback, which are networked to each other for the purposes of reviewing missions and stuff like that. Whisper programs her mask to show Tangle how the Diamond Cutters normally operate. This mission involved the old fake prisoner gag, with Mimic disguised as an egg pong, dragging Slinger, Claire, and Smithy on chains, and telling another robot to beat it. Once the immediate area is secured, Claire and Whisper, who's elsewhere off screen, determine the number of enemy forces in the area. Slinger and Smithy then pull out their specialized Wispins and go to town. Whisper's able to destroy an inbound tank as the rest of her team take out the base. Well, so far things are good for the team. Tangle's impressed, and we get another feature of Whisper's mask. It can translate the Wisp language as long as you wear it. According to Whisper, Smithy was the one who designed their masks and Wispins. In fact, the variable Wispin she has was his prototype. The others were supposed to get one because the team were supposed to work as one, using each other's wisps and the like. Whisper then cannot bring herself to continue the tale. Tangle insists on showing her the event instead, with the reasoning that she can help Whisper if she knows more. With encouragement from the Wisps, Whisper sets up the playback footage. We see the team at their hangout with Mimic explaining a potential target. Claire wants Whisper to hang back as always, because she has a bad feeling about this one. They're still taking advantage of this opportunity though. Things are a bit quiet at the facility, both inside and out. Mimic disguises himself to scout around while the three of them check out some strange readings from a room. A room full of shadow androids, which activate when the door's sealed shut. The shadow androids start swarming the trio, and it's not pretty. We then switch to Mimic's POV as he chit-chats with Eggman. With Eggman nearly conquering the world, and no Sonic to oppose him, Mimic decided, yeah, best to join the winning side. Mimic's Cube Wisp leaves in disgust. Who's more disgusted right now is Eggman. He's gotten confirmation that the trio died, but one member remains unaccounted for. Either Mimic finishes the job, or Eggman will finish Mimic. Whisper hit herself, and all Mimic could find was her Wispin. With his mask being similar to hers, he figured this will be proof enough that he killed her. Once the playback ended, Whisper says once the coast was clear, she rescued the Wisps and got Smithy's prototype from her base. She kept the footage as motivation, to make sure she never forgets. Tangle then asks one final question. Why is she, i.e. Tangle, being left behind? Sure, Mimic can shapeshift, but as Tangle notes, he's also in Whisper's head. The answer is pretty profound. While Whisper has had allies like Sonic, Silver, and even her Wisp companions, Tangle's the first real friend in a while that she's opened up to. All of this makes Tangle even more determined to help her, and she vows not to be tricked by Mimic again. To prove how sincere Whisper means by opening up to Tangle, she gives her a big old thank you hug. Aww. Their next move hinges on the fact that Eggman wants Mimic to show actual proof he finished the job this time. Sure enough, Mimic returns later to do just that. He discovers tracks from the safe, leading him to a message specifically for him. He then informs Eggman that he'll need backup for the final showdown. Let's first talk about the possible inspiration for the Diamond Cutters. I've implied who Whisper's based off of back in the main Sonic series. A character that's a wolf that can use her Wispin like a sniper. Well, now we have an octopus that changes forms for infiltration, and Slinger the Marksman, according to what I've read, he's an ocelot. Yeah, there's no being around the bush. Ian must have been inspired by the Metal Gear Solid series, and I wouldn't be surprised if the name Diamond Cutters was inspired by the name Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid 5. If you're curious on the species of the remaining two members, Smithy is a lion and Clairvoyance is a howler monkey. If you want another connection to the Metal Gear franchise, Whisper, word-wise, is close to the word quiet, which was a name used for another sniper character. We see Whisper's full tragic backstory, and I do mean see. Clever use of the playback technology established in issue 1 gives it a bit of that found footage feel. It's also good that we see the Diamond Cutters work well as a unit before Mimic backstabs them in order to save his own skin. Man, they must have really gotten under Eggman's skin by causing so much damage. And the flashback footage took place during the 6 months Sonic was imprisoned. Going back to Mimic, he's much healthier in the old footage compared to what he looks like now. Yeesh. We could speculate on what happened between then and now. Maybe, as an aquatic creature, he's dehydrating, which explains his deformities on his beak area. I should note, real-life octopi have beaks, so yeah, that's accurate. Or maybe perhaps Eggman punished him for failing to kill Whisper the first time. Who knows? Let's move on to the defining event. I was both surprised and impressed on the means of death. A swarm of shadow androids. I applaud Eggman for reusing past technology, but wow. Seeing the trio being overwhelmed by these things, woo. I'm reminded of the movie Aliens, where the Marines first encountered the creatures, only for most of the Marines to meet an untimely end. They also utilized head cameras, which recorded the chaos of the conflict. And Whisper kept the footage of her teammates' demise as a motivating factor to continue the fight. And poor Whisper, she saw her team as a family. She was much happier and louder compared to now. No wonder when she got all of the Wisp and Smithy's prototype, she preferred to stick to the shadows. She was in pain. I mean, the Wisp and her weapon were all that's left of her team. And she doesn't want to experience the pain again by losing Tangle to Mimic. Looking back on Whisper's previous comic appearances, we now get the context of certain actions. The way she looks at Shadow, boy that was awkward, and the reason for certain emotional outbursts. Tangle, being the audience avatar, actually points this out. I have to give credit to Tangle for being respectful in this issue. Yes, sometimes she's known to get excited at pretty much anything that's cool, but when the situation's serious, she dials it back a bit. Being a true friend, hearing and watching the story makes Tangle even more determined to help Whisper finish this dark chapter in her life. Whisper must have seen something in Tangle to allow a bond to form in the first place, besides being comic exclusive characters. Let's hope this bond can help them take down Mimic once and for all. We'll see this next time when we conclude the miniseries. See ya then. Welcome to the final part of the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. Since we're at the end, I do want to take the time to compliment on the miniseries' primary covers. While they are connecting covers, it's arranged in a way that half of them are always upside down. It's cool in a twisted sort of way. Anyway, before we head into the finale, let's briefly recap what happened last time. And of course, there will be spoilers. Issue 3's main focus was learning more about Whisper's former team, the Diamond Cutters, and how Mimic arranged things with Dr. Eggman so 3 of them ended up dead. It wasn't pretty. Learning about Whisper's past only made Tangle want to help her more. The two began planning to take down Mimic, who returned the next morning to look for any signs of bodies, only to find a message saying, "This'll end where it all began." Let's get to it. The setting for this battle is the former base of the Diamond Cutters. A battalion of Batniks arrived since Mimic, dirty cheater that he is, had Eggman loan some for the fight. He should have sent more since Whisper begins blasting them from the sky, showing us why she gathered a reputation among the heroes and the villains. She informs Tangle that the Batniks are a distraction. By now, Mimic's infiltrated the base. That's Tangle's cue to head inside herself, leaving Whisper to deal with the remaining Batniks, at the cost of wrecking the base. You can tell it's hard for Whisper to do this, but it's ultimately necessary to even the odds. Inside, Tangle readies herself to trip Mimic, only the person she catches is Sonic? Nope, Mimic just assumed his form so he can try and trick Tangle again, even throwing in things Sonic would say. While it appears that Tangle's fallen for the ruse, she's actually learned her lesson. She leads Mimic into a trap, only the trap is the old rec room with the masks of the fallen Diamond Cutters. There is a reason for this as she activates the playback on the 3 masks. Apparently they can also project holograms. Man, Smithy can rival Tails as a genius. The message shows Mimic's former teammates complimenting him on a job well done. If the idea was to guilt trip him, well, sorry to say, he's one of those mercenaries. The ones that are in it for the reward, not the cause, and won't hesitate to backstab his team in order to survive, as we saw last issue. Before Tangle strikes, Mimic changes into Jewel. You coward, changing into Tangle's childhood friend to throw her off. Well, 2 can play dirty as Tangle cheap shots Mimic with her tail. She does hold her own for a little while, but in the end, she's dealing with a trained killer with shapeshifting powers. Luckily, Whisper's done shooting Batniks and decides to play a game of Whack-A-Mimic. Unlucky for her, Mimic again plays dirty and says just the right words to get Cube, his original Whisper member, to leave the fight. That's okay. Whisper can still use the actual Wispin as a club. Ouch. Unfortunately, Mimic's happy to return the favor. Thankfully, Tangle's recovered enough to ensnare Mimic and slam him to the ground. You know, Tangle, you should have repeatedly slammed him to the ground similar to what the Hulk did to Loki in the Avengers. Mimic tries breaking free by shapeshifting into various forms, including Smithy, Dr. Eggman for some reason, and ugh! Again, what is it with Evan Stanley and Nightmare Faces? Whisper is ready to finish this, but Tangle talks her down by giving her the speech. You know, the don't do something you'll regret for the rest of your life spiel, with the let him live with his failure cherry on top of this cliche sundae. The reason it keeps getting used in fiction is because oftentimes it works, as it does here. They still need to deal with Mimic. Fortunately, Tangle knows where to go. Tails' workshop. He has a test chamber that runs models on various climate conditions, which will make a perfect cell. Mimic says he'll break out, stating that he's done this sort of thing before. Well, Tangle points out that if he does, Eggman won't be happy with him failing his mission and wasting a bunch of his badniks. After Tails assures them the cell will be moved to the nearest prison ASAP, Tangle and Whisper leave. Even though her team's avenged, Whisper will keep fighting Eggman until he's gone. Get in line, my dear. She invites Tangle to come along, and Tangle would like to after she heads home for a little R&R. The issue and the miniseries end with the two parting ways, having shared a life-changing adventure. Let's start with the setting for this final battle, the former base of the Diamond Cutters. Interesting that they chose a series of platforms out at sea to operate out of. And of course, it's another nod to the Metal Gear Solid games. In this case, Mother Base from Metal Gear Solid 5, where the Diamond Dogs were based. The staff must have loved the series to keep placing references in the comics. The base itself looks dilapidated. Did it become this way after the team fell apart and Whisper abandoned it? Or had it always been like this? Either way, by the end of this issue, it's in worse shape thanks to Whisper sacrificing parts of it to stop the Badnik forces. As I said, it pains her to do this, especially since we later learn she turned it into a memorial for her fallen teammates. Sometimes though, you need to let go of the past in order to truly move on. The final fight serves as a nice contrast to the one in issue 2. There, Mimic used the spacious Eggman warehouse to his advantage, separating the two with his shapeshifting powers and leading them into traps, and was very close to killing them by blowing up the place, if not for Tangle's last minute idea. At that point, only Whisper knew what they were dealing with. For this fight, the two utilized a confined space to take down Mimic. Yeah, the Badnik forces, but they were just a minor distraction. Together, Tangle and Whisper took down this monster. If he took one out, the other was ready to tag in. Basically what the fights amount to is, the one leaving an invitation for a fight will generally be the one to win. Mimic's final fate for the moment is imprisonment. Some might be disappointed that he didn't die or get a dose of the metal virus in the end. After what he did to the Diamond Cutters, you'd expect him to get a harsher punishment. In a way, I'm kinda glad about this outcome. We need more villains besides Dr. Eggman and Dr. Starline. And having one that can assume different forms opens up a number of story possibilities down the line, if utilized properly. For now, I'm content with him getting a number of injuries thanks to our heroes. Also, I've been informed about why Mimic has a nightmare face. According to Evan Stanley, Mimic changed it to look more intimidating on purpose. If you're going to build a terrifying reputation, you need an iconic look, don't you know? The metal virus is not mentioned once in this miniseries, which is good in my opinion. That kind of stuff is meant for the main book. This is a more personal tale between our two leads. While the primary focus has been on Whisper and her past, we gotta give Tangle some credit. She's learned from her failure and was ultimately the one to restrain Mimic. Plus, in this issue, she serves as Whisper's moral center. I joke about the cliche "don't kill him" speech, but I feel Whisper needed Tangle to keep her from crossing the line. And hey, Tangle managed to shut down Mimic as he was threatening to escape. That face there says it all. It is a little odd that Tangle wants to go home before taking up Whisper's offer to join her, but after thinking about it, it's understandable. After going through an emotional event for the sake of a friend, you kinda want to go home to recharge and return to something familiar before heading back out. If you've read issue 21 of the main series, or at least saw my review of it, we know the two will meet up again to help Tails. Of course, issue 21 came out long before this issue thanks to numerous delays, which kinda spoiled the fact the two will make it out of this conflict a-okay. However, it does allow us to see the results of Whisper's development. She will always have the trauma of losing her teammates, there's no denying that, but she's starting to move on from her past, with Tangle again being a key element. Before, Whisper either retreated into her mask or threatened to shoot Tangle for touching her. Now they're giving each other emotional support during a crisis. Nothing says bonding like taking down a mercenary, am I right? Despite all of the delays, I greatly enjoyed this miniseries. It spotlighted two characters that debuted during the first year of IDW Sonic's existence. Ones that I've said before can easily fit into the Sonic games. If any Sonic mods are watching this, do you think you can make this happen, please? Though something tells me this has already happened. Anyway, props to Ian Flynn, Evan Stanley, and colorist Leonardo Ito, or Ito, for taking us on this ride. Whether you buy the individual issues or the eventual graphic novel, I would recommend getting this 4-part miniseries, not only for its massive world building, action, and character development, but to also inform the powers that be, hey, I'm interested in more spin-off material from the IDW Sonic universe, either through more miniseries or a second book a la Archie's Sonic universe. Until that happens, we can at least enjoy a 4-issue story focusing on a couple of heroic and popular comic exclusive characters.